Chapter 1. Teach your child to be anti-racist and change the world for the better. Babies aren't born racist. Children don't suddenly develop views about people of color unless they have been surrounded by those who have racist views and have voiced them for the child to hear. Racists are bred. They're not born. However, that means that the anti-racist baby can also be bred. Racists aren't born, they are bred. That means you can raise an anti-racist baby too. As a parent, you have a huge amount of power in your hands. You can teach your child to be anti-racist. You can show them the beauty of differences and teach them to celebrate and embrace them rather than be fearful of them or develop negative views which they then voice and make people feel ashamed or hurt. Babies are either taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no middle ground. By using Antiracist Baby, you can help your child to develop a world of equality for all. If every single parent follows the steps in this piece, we can make huge changes in the world for generations to come. The potential is immeasurable. Did you know? 88% of the police stops in New York City in 2018 were Black or Latino people. Only 10% involved white people. Out of those 88% stops, 70% were completely innocent. Chapter 2. Show your child that all skin colors exist. Not encouraging your child to see different skin colors is just as bad as pointing them out in a negative way. It's important that your child understands that people all have differences, and that includes their skin color. It's important that your child understands that the color of someone's skin doesn't mean they should be treated differently, feared, oppressed, or that their value is based upon their skin. Talk about skin color with your child and help them see the beauty in differences. A person's value is determined by their actions and their heart. Encourage your child to open their eyes and see the huge array of different skin colors throughout the world and to find the beauty in those differences. If you claim to be colorblind, you deny what's right in front of you. Ibram X. Kendi. Chapter 3. Don't stay quiet about racism. Racism is a huge problem the world over. By not speaking about it, by not calling out racist incidents, you're sweeping it under the carpet and encouraging your child to see that it's not important. It is important. It is vitally important. A huge part of educating your child about racism and helping them to be anti-racist is to see that racism exists, that it's bad, and that it needs to stop. Use your words and call out racist incidents. Speak about things you see and hear, and explore with your child why it's wrong to think or act that way. Teaching your child about the negative effects of racism is vitally important. Show them why a change is needed. Racism has to have a name. It has to be called out, and it has to be discussed. If we don't do these things as a collective group and with our children, it will simply continue to be, and it will always be as violent and destructive as it has been over the centuries that have passed. It might be uncomfortable, and it might make you question whether a subject so heavy is appropriate for a child. But if you want your child to be anti-racist, you have to teach them what racism is and why it's wrong from an early age. Did you know? A U.S. study showed that job applications with Black origin-sounding surnames were 50% less likely to receive a callback compared to surnames that sounded traditionally white. Chapter 4. Policies need to change if we are to be equal. It's a truth that some people have more of what they want while others get less. This isn't always down to how hard they work or sheer luck. It's because the policies in place dictate that some are allowed more than others. That's not an equal system. It's a racist and prejudiced system. Policies often unfairly target people of color and minority groups. It's not so much people that are the problem, it's the policies that are in place. These policies oppress certain people, usually people of color, and dictate that they have to work 10 times harder to get even a quarter of what others get. Teach your child that the world isn't fair and that policies discriminate against certain people. Teach them that people of color are often unfairly targeted in these policies. Help them to understand that none of this is fair. In the future, your anti-racist baby and the other anti-racist babies bred along with them may lobby for change that will eventually create justice and fairness for all. Chapter 5. We all have one thing in common. We're human. Ibram X. Kendi states that although we should encourage our children to see differences in skin color and culture, to embrace these things as beautiful, at the end of the day, we need to show our children that underneath everything, we're all just human beings. Show your children that we all have differences, but that we're also all human beings at the end of the day. We're born into this world in the same way. We live our lives, and we all die. The only difference is the part in being born and dying. We all have a beating heart. We all have blood pumped around our body. We all have a brain, and we all have feelings. People are people, no matter where they were born, the color of their skin, the culture they belong to, the language they speak. Beneath everything, we are all the same, human beings. Chapter 6. Differences should be celebrated. Diversity is a beautiful and wonderful thing. It should be celebrated and seen as a way to learn something new. Encourage your child to embrace differences, to learn about new cultures, to learn words from different languages, and to ask questions. Antiracist Baby doesn't see certain groups as better or worse. They love a world that's truly diverse. Ibram X. Kendi. By teaching your child from a young age that we are all human and all equal, you will help to cast aside the racist view that certain groups are better or more valuable than others. Teach your child to find wonder and beauty in different cultures. Teach them to watch and smile in amazement at cultural dances, songs, and languages. Encourage them to be open to learning from these cultures and to see that all cultures are unique, beautiful, and above all else, equally as important as one another. Encourage your child to learn about different cultures, art, and languages, and to find joy in them. Chapter 7. Admit when you might use racist language or views. Learning to be anti-racist means being brave enough to admit when you may use racist language or have had a racist view. Challenging our long-held views is one of the building blocks to knocking racism down. Educating ourselves and changing is a strength, and it develops a more tolerant and open-minded society. Teach your child that if they do have racist thoughts or use racist words, admitting it is the first step towards change. As your child grows, encourage them to admit if they have a thought that is potentially racist or they say something to someone that is racist. Explore with them why they were wrong to think this or say this, and help them understand. The key to knocking racism out of our lives is in understanding and education. This doesn't mean you should make your child feel guilty for occasionally saying or thinking something which could be potentially racist, but to educate them and help them see the error of their ways. Children are learning and growing, and the racist world we live in is bound to have some effect at some stage. The key to developing an anti-racist baby is to give them the strength and bravery to speak up and learn from their mistakes. Racism grows if we don't challenge our thoughts and words. Education is the key to change. Chapter 8. Encourage your child to be curious. Antiracist Baby is always learning, changing, and growing. Ibram X. Kendi. As their parent, it is your responsibility to encourage your child to be curious about everyone and everything. By doing this, they feel comfortable asking questions, learning, taking in new concepts, and as a result, become more open-minded and accepting as people. There is much to be learned from different cultures, and by encouraging your child to lead with their curiosity, they will always be unearthing something new and exciting. They'll always be meeting new people and making new friends. Your child will learn to be anti-racist because they will appreciate differences as wonderful things and not become fearful of them or be tempted to label them. Encourage your child to be curious, ask questions, and meet new people. Chapter 9. Never judge a book by its cover. An anti-racist baby believes that, in the end, we will overcome racism. They never judge a book by its cover. Instead, they get to know the person as a fellow human being. They treat them equally because that's all they know, and they make sure that they read to the end before making a judgment, if indeed they need to at all. Teaching your child about racism gives the hope that one day we will finally beat this terrible problem. The anti-racist baby is the key to major change in the future. The anti-racist baby will be the reason that racism finally ends. They change the world with their attitude. They celebrate differences. They talk about racism and call it out. And they know deep down that people aren't the true problem, that policies are. Conclusion. Racism is a problem that has infected the world with negativity for longer than the history books can tell. If we are to have any chance of kicking it out of our lives for good, we need to invest time in how we raise our children. We need to raise a world of anti-racist babies who will then take on policies, challenge them, celebrate differences, and knock out racism for good. Our children truly are the future, and by teaching them that racism is an issue that doesn't belong in the world, we can finally end the oppression and discrimination that has ruined lives for centuries. Try this. 1. Talk about skin color and cultural differences with your child, and encourage them to ask questions. The worst thing you can do is not to mention it at all. Racism grows when we don't call it out. 2. Read books with your child or watch movies, TV shows, which highlight different cultures. 3. When your child sees something on the news about racism, be honest about what has happened and don't sugarcoat it.